In today's video, we will make this set of low poly trees, which will be used to create an outdoor scene in a future project. Begin by starting a new general file in Blender. Select all of the default objects and delete them. Next, open the Add menu, pick Cylinder, and open this menu in the bottom left. Change the vertices to 8. And this will be our tree trunk. Let's switch to edit mode and select the top of this cylinder. Press 1 on the number pad to look at it from the front, and let's scale this down so that our tree is wider at the base and getting narrower as you go up. Next, hit E to extrude to make another section a bit longer compared to this lower section, and then S to scale and give this a little bit of a taper where it gets smaller as you continue up the tree trunk. Now let's go back to object mode and switch to the shading tab. We're going to try in a future project to create a forest, and every tree we need to look a little different. And one way to do that without having a different model for every tree is to have a base set of models, but each one has a slightly different color. So we want to set up the tree trunk so that every time we have a new tree, the color of that trunk will be varied. Make sure you have the tree trunk selected. Click New. And let's first look at the roughness. With a setting of 0.5, that means there will be a little bit of glossiness and reflectiveness. Tree bark doesn't have any reflectiveness typically. So we want to set that to 1 so that it will look really rough. We could change the color here, but we want some way to tell Blender that each tree should have a slightly different color. To do that, we're going to add something called a color ramp. Press Shift A, search for ramp. You can just start typing after you hit Shift A and it will automatically start to search. And we want the color to be based on what happens in this node. Now, if you look at this node, we can adjust these sliders, or what they call flags, and that will adjust the color. But we want each tree trunk to be a different color. So if I duplicate this and make a few different tree trunks, you'll notice that each one is the exact same color. Any change I make here happens to all of them. So I need something that will tell Blender that each one has a random color. To do that, we're going to hit Shift A and search for Object Info and place this to the left. We want a random number generated from each instance that the tree is created. This random number will then tell Blender to pick a random spot on this scale from left to right. At the moment, we have black, gray, and white. If I click on this left flag, the black one, click on this long black rectangle, I can then say that some trees should be a darker brown. If I click on the white flag on the right, I could say that some trees should be a darkish gray color. And then Blender will pick spots in between these two, and each tree will have a different value, a different color from this scale. Let's click in this box and name this tree trunk color. And then we can use this also for our leaves. We'll make a copy of it and adjust it for leaf colors. Now, if you made some copies of these, you may go ahead and select and delete those so that you have just one. Let's switch back to the Layout tab here in the top. And let's look at it from the front view. So I've hit 1 on the number pad. I'm looking at it from the front. Shift D the copy, X for the X axis, and then slide this over. I'm going to select this tree trunk and come to the outliner, double click and name this pine tree .000. Now, the reason I put 3 zeros, Blender by default will make any copy you have 0.001, 0.002. So we want the original to be 0.000. Select the other tree trunk, and we'll just call this tree 0.000. And then we will come back to the one on the right later. So I'm just going to slide that out of the way. Then select this one. We will turn this into a pine tree. So let's go into edit mode by hitting tab. And let's go to wireframe to make it a little bit easier to select. Then I want to switch to vertices select. So click this button, select the top, and I want this to be a bit shorter, like so, for the pine tree. So with these selected, I'm going to hit E to extrude, S to scale, pull it out, something like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes wide on the left and 4 boxes wide on the right. Next, I'm going to hit G to grab, Z for the Z axis, and pull this down. You should still have this outside ring selected. And one thing I want to look at, if I go into solid view, you'll see that I have this face at the bottom. Let's go to face select by clicking this button, select just the bottom, hit the delete button, and select face, and that will open this up. So if you look at the tree from an angle, it looks like there's a slope going up to the where it connects. Let's go back to vertices select, and now I want to reselect this outside edge. And a way to do that, if you put your mouse on the edge near a vertice, hold the Alt button, left click, it will select the loop going all the way around. Hit 1 to look at it from the front view again, E to extrude, Z for the Z axis, move it up 4 boxes, give or take, then S to scale. I'm going to switch back to wireframe by hitting Z and clicking wireframe, or you can click this button. That's a little farther up than I meant to go, so I'm just going to hit G and Z, slide that down. I like that a little better. Let's scale it in just a little bit. Extrude with E, S to scale. Pull it out so that it's not quite as wide as this bottom part. We're going to slowly get smaller as we go up. Grab on the Z axis, Z to pull it down like so. And I'm just going to shift middle mouse wheel to realign this so I can look at it a little better. E to extrude, Z for the Z axis, click to place it, S to scale, G to grab, Z to pull it down a little bit. And as you work on this, you can make the tree shape what you want. I'm just talking through this out loud. So if you want to make it slightly different, excuse me, that's fine. We're going to make some different variations anyway. So I still have these top vertices selected, E to extrude, S to scale, pull it out, left click, G to grab, Z to pull it down, E to extrude, Z for the Z axis. And I think I'll make this the top of the tree. So I'm going to hit S to scale and make it really skinny, but I don't want it to cross over. One thing, if you haven't noticed this in Blender, if my mouse is really close to the thing that I'm scaling and I hit S, I don't really have a lot of room to move my mouse to control that. So I'll hit escape to release that, move my mouse farther away, hit S to scale, and now I have this entire distance as a control for how small this is going to be. So you can make this as pointy as you want. I just zoomed in to get a little closer. And for this, we can leave this open, or you can hit F to make a face. Then if I hit Z and switch to solid view, I can see that this is now closed off. So this will be our default pine tree. Let's now switch back to object mode, and let's set up the material for the green part of our tree. Click on the shading tab and go into edit mode by hitting tab. We want the leaves of this to be a different color than the trunk. Right now it's all one object, so any change I make to this will happen to the entire surface. So we need to come to the right in the properties panel to the material tab. If you look in this top area, you'll see that we have tree trunk color, and below that you have tree trunk color again. This top area allows you to assign different materials to one object, and these are called material slots. So I'm going to hit the plus sign to add a new slot. I'm going to hit this little circle, and that will allow me to pick any material that we are currently using in this project. And I'm going to pick tree trunk color. I don't want to do all this work again. So if you look here to the right of tree trunk color, you'll see what looks like two little pieces of paper stacked up. This is a copy button. If I click that, it now makes a copy of this material. So they are now two different things. Any change I make to one no longer affects the other. So I want to make sure that I have tree trunk color selected. I'm going to change this to pine needle color. And let's go ahead and set this up with some green on one end, and then maybe a lighter green on the other end. So it's going to go from dark green to a lighter green. Now, it's still not showing up on our needles because we haven't told Blender what part of the mesh should have this material. So we need to select all of the parts of the tree that are going to be the pine needle. Let's start by selecting the top of our tree. We're going to use a new shortcut, and it's the add selection. So we're going to press Control and the plus sign once, and it will select everything connected to our top. Control plus sign again will go up inside and select the underneath. So if we keep pressing that, we can see that we slowly select everything until we get to the tree trunk. If you accidentally select too much by hitting Control plus sign, you can hit Control minus and it will remove something. Once you have all of the needle parts selected, we're going to make sure that pine needle color is selected here in the material slot. We're going to click Assign, and then Blender will assign whatever we have selected to this material. So if I left click off, you can see now that our pine tree has green for the top. Next, let's switch back to the Layout tab here at the top, and let's go to Object Mode. Let's make two more copies of this pine tree. So with the pine tree selected, Shift D, X, so we keep it on the X axis. And I'm going to create two of those. You'll notice in the outliner that it's named them in a logical way, pine tree.000, then .001, .002. Let's select the second one that we've created, and we're going to make this one a tall, skinny pine tree. So let's start by selecting the top, and I want to stretch all of it out. One way to do that could be to hit S to scale, but I want to keep the origin point right here near the base, because when we use this in the future, part of the tree trunk may go into the ground or up on the ground depending how it's sloping. So we need enough overlap or enough sticking underneath so that on sloped hills, the tree still looks like it's in the ground. So we're going to select the top, and we're going to turn on proportional editing, which is this blue button. The shortcut for that is O, so if you tap the letter O, it will turn that on and off. With the top selected, I'll hit G to grab, Z to move it up, and you'll notice that only a small part is moving. And you'll also notice there's a circle on the screen. If I roll my mouse wheel up, or down I should say, it will increase how much is affected. Now at the moment, you can see that the base of my tree is being pulled up also. I don't want that, so I'm going to make this circle smaller so that the base of the tree is not in the circle, and that way it's not being drug up and down. Something like this looks good. Now I do want to scale to make it a bit skinnier. So if I hit S to scale, Shift Z, so it doesn't get any taller, and I'm going to drag this down so that it's kind of a really pointy, skinny tree. And my goal is to make 3 very distinct pine trees, because when we do this in a future project, we're going to randomize the scale a little bit, but we want 3 trees that if they're shrunk taller or smaller, they're still going to look different than the other 2. So I've switched back to object mode. Let's go to our last tree. And for this one, I'll go into edit mode by hitting tab, select the top, grab Z. And once again, I don't want the bottom to move. And I want to make this really short and kind of fat. So now scale, Shift Z to bring it out quite a bit. Now last, I still don't want to see this much of the trunk. And actually I want to come back to this other one and fix this too, but we'll work on this one. So let's go to wireframe by hitting Z. And I want to select this bottom edge of leaves and where it connects to the trunk, grab that on the Z axis, and I'm going to scale down the proportional edit a bit. So I want to see very little of this tree trunk. Next, select the middle part, kind of adjust that, then select the top part and adjust that. Switch to solid view by hitting Z, and I'm pretty happy with those 3. You're welcome to, actually, I'm happy with this one. And you're welcome to adjust these however much you want. But I'd like to go on this tall one and select this part and select this part and move that up on the Z axis so it's much showing much more of the tree trunk. And I may adjust this a little bit. So tweak these trees however you want so that you have 3 distinct pine trees. Okay, in the next video, we will work on making some more trees that just have green leaves, so kind of summer trees, and then we'll also make some that have fall leaves.